change. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. Our guests are 350.org co-founder Bill McKibben in Vermont at home after his arrest at his local Exxon station for saying that Exxon lied, and Los Angeles Congressmember Ted Lieu. Juan?
Bill McKibben, before the break, we were playing that clip of the speech from the Exxon CEO. Looking back at that now, and also thinking about the reality that in a few weeks there will be a new round of international climate change talks in Paris, the impact of this scandal coming at this time.
Well, look, the impact of what Exxon did has played out over 25 years and will play out over geologic time. There's 47 people dead in the Philippines today after the record 20th strong typhoon in the northern hemisphere dropped 4 feet of rain, almost unimaginable across the Philippines. But something like that happens every day now. We've melted the Arctic. We've changed the chemistry of the oceans. This is their legacy. As we move forward, still trying to keep this from getting any more out of control than it is, it's going to be incredibly important to break the power of the fossil fuel industry. That's why there's this huge divestment campaign that California just joined their retirement funds in participating in. That'll help begin to break their power. That's why we do things like fight pipelines and fracking wells and things to try and reduce their power. But man, if only they had told the truth to begin with. That's why, I mean, I went to get arrested just because I was afraid that these remarkable exposés at InsideClimate News and the LA Times would disappear into the media clutter of our lives. This is one of the, if not the most important investigative coups in decades. And these reporters' remarkable work deserves to become part of the kind of common understanding of the entire planet about the most significant crisis human beings have ever wandered into.
Well, Bill, can you explain exactly what you did? This action was what, last Thursday?
It was last week. Amy, it was not, this was, not the bridge at Selma. I just sat down in front of the Exxon Mobil station, not far away in Vermont, and with a very kind owner who I was not trying to cause problems to. In fact, I gave him $100 to make up for any income he might have lost while I was blocking his pump. And eventually the police came and took me away and charged me with trespass. And all it was, as I said at the time, was an effort to get people to read these stories. I'm not sure how well it worked. Later that day, my wife told me that it had been the #1 trending thing on Facebook. But then, a couple hours later, she told me it had been replaced by a video of a corgi dog barking at a miniature pumpkin. So, who knows? But we're going to do everything we can, everyone who's working on these issues, to try and make sure that this doesn't somehow disappear. Such gratitude to the congressman and his colleague in California, and of course to Bernie Sanders for pressing hard for what needs to happen next, which is a full-on investigation by our Department of Justice and by departments of justice all over the world into the conduct of this, remember, largest corporation in the world. Exxon has made more money 3 of the last 4 years than any company in the history of money, okay? So it's not like this is some small exception or some outlier or whatever. This is the dead-on heart of the fossil fuel industry, the people who've done everything they can to keep us from addressing climate change.
Well, I'd like to, you mentioned Congressman Lieu. I'd like to bring him back into the conversation. A spokesman for Exxon, Richard Kyle, has rejected the allegations contained in Congressman Lieu and in his letter to Attorney General Loretta Lynch. Kyle told The Guardian, quote, "This is complete bull bleep. We have a 30-year continuous uninterrupted history of researching climate change, and the LA Times, for whatever reason, chose to ignore that fact." Meanwhile, Exxon continues to demand favors from the government, most recently a lifting of the longstanding ban on exporting American crude. Exxon's Vice President for Public and Governmental Affairs, Kenneth Cohen, told the New York Times, quote, "The sooner this happens, the better for us." Congressman Lieu, your reaction to the Exxon response to your letter?
The ExxonMobil spokesperson is out of his mind. He must not have read what his top executives were saying. Exxon appears now to be denying that they were denying climate change. And if you look at what your clips had shown, that's simply not history. And I want to thank Bill McKibben for his tremendous environmental activism. And what Bill said is correct. There's an issue here not just of taking carbon out of the air. It's a race. We need to take greenhouse gases out of the air quickly, because at some point we're going to cross a line, and we may already have crossed it, where it's going to be very hard to reverse the effects of climate change. And Exxon scientists knew that. They said that there were going to be catastrophic effects if we don't stop this quickly.
You know, this LA Times piece, in addition to the Inside Climate Change piece, is fascinating, what Exxon knew about the Earth's melting climate, about the Earth's melting Arctic. And it says Ken Crosdale, senior ice researcher for Exxon's Canadian subsidiary, was leading a team of researchers and engineers that was trying to determine how global warming could affect Exxon's Arctic operations and its bottom line. It says, from 86 to 92, Crosdale's team looked at both positive and negative effects that a warming Arctic would have on oil operations, reporting its findings to Exxon headquarters in Houston and New Jersey. The good news for Exxon, he told an audience of academics and government researchers in 1992, was that potential global warming can only help lower exploration and development costs in the Beaufort Sea. But, he added, it also posed hazards, including higher sea levels and bigger waves, which could damage the company's existing and future coastal and offshore infrastructure, including drilling platforms, artificial islands, processing plants and pump stations, and a thawing Earth could be troublesome for those facilities as well as pipelines. Now, Congressmember Lieu, this is fascinating. It could benefit Exxon because the global warming would melt the Arctic ice and open up the window for them to drill, 3, 4, 5 months. But, of course, it could also damage them severely.
I believe there needs to be a new word in the English language created for what Exxon did. They confirmed climate change was happening with their scientists, then their top executives denied it, and then they planned to take advantage of it. That is way beyond hypocrisy. They were doing all of this in the name of profits, and they set back humanity and may have, in fact, doomed humanity. This is just one company, and it's just very shocking that they did that.
So let's talk about the parallels to big tobacco. What exactly a Justice Department investigation would mean. Bill McKibben has said no corporation has ever done anything this big and this bad. Congressmember Lieu, explain what happens if, as you're calling for and the presidential candidate Bernie Sanders is demanding, an actual investigation into big oil, into Exxon.
Well, I think it's tremendous that the former Department of Justice prosecutor who went after big tobacco and won now believes that the Department of Justice should do investigation of ExxonMobil and big oil. And what happened with tobacco is the federal government used what's called the RICO statute. It's a racketeering statute. And they went after tobacco companies for knowing that tobacco products were causing cancer and killing people, and then denying that was happening, making profits from the products that they were selling. There's a very good parallel here with what Exxon did. They knew that fossil fuels were causing global warming. Then their top executives denied the science, spread uncertainty about it, and they profited from that. And I think the Department of Justice should investigate and then prosecute if the facts warrant prosecution.
Exxon officials go to jail?
It would depend on what the investigation shows. But, you know, sitting back humanity for decades and maybe permanently seems like a pretty high crime to me.
And, well, certainly any kind of a Justice Department investigation or even civil lawsuits that might arise in the future would have the benefit of discovery, of being able to get at the internal records of Exxon in terms of what the executives knew, when they knew it, and what they did specifically. Bill McKibben, the prospects of that.
Good reporters were able to get this much from the outside. You're absolutely right, Juan. It's that depositions and that discovery process will bring to light, things that we need to know, that we deserve to know. This is like tobacco, but in a sense, it's much, much larger. You never had to go near a gas pump to be the victim of this particular deception. If you live in some island in the Pacific, if you live in Tuvalu or Vanuatu or in the Maldives in the Indian Ocean, if you live on low ground in Bangladesh, if you live in the sub-Saharan Africa where drought is now spreading, or in the Fertile Crescent, not so fertile anymore as it dries out, if you lived in Pakistan, where we saw the most epic flooding the world has ever seen in 2010. If you live in California, where we're now ping-ponging between severe drought and once-in-a-thousand-year rainfall events that are plugging the highways with mud flows, any of these places and a million more, then you should have standing to say what Exxon did is deeply wrong, and we need to demand that they be somehow made to be part of the solution. They shouldn't be asking for more favors, more subsidies, more lifting of the oil export ban. Instead, we should be figuring out how to make sure that they and the rest of big oil use the money that they've piled up to help fund the transition quickly to renewable energy. A transition that would have happened long ago without them in the way, without them dominating our political life.